What's going on, everybody? Today we are going to be re-wrapping the tank on the Scout. I had this wrap done, or I did this wrap a few months ago, and overall it's held up pretty well, but you can see how there is some wrinkles, and you can kind of see how the wrap is pulled back. This is all my mistake. I just didn't apply it properly. I stretched it too much where I cut it. So I'm going to be redoing it today to help try and make it look a little bit cleaner. You can also see here on the bottom side how the wrap is peeling back. So I'm going to redo this and hopefully make it look a little bit cleaner. So to get started, what I'm doing on the tank is I've raised the tank. The first time I did it, I actually took the whole tank off. I don't really want to do that this time. I'm going to keep the design a little bit more simple, so I don't think I'm going to need to take the whole tank off. I'm still debating if I want to even attempt to do this bottom part again or just keep it to the top. But anyway, by no means am I an expert at this, so if you're watching this looking for a how-to guide, I would probably recommend watching some other people who actually know what they're doing, but you can take pleasure in my toils. Alright, the tools that you're going to need to apply the wrap are obviously the wrap. You're going to need a heat gun. I recommend get a decent quality heat gun. I got a much smaller one. It didn't have temperature control. It was just an on-off one. I don't recommend that one. It wasn't really strong enough to do what I wanted it to do for the wrap. So I recommend get one where you can control the temperature. You're going to need a squeegee, some knifeless tape, if you are going to be cutting the wrap into multiple pieces. If you're going to be wrapping an entire part of your bike in one piece, then you don't necessarily need this, but it might be good to have on hand just in case you do need to break up the wrap into multiple pieces. And you'll also need some type of cleaner to clean off each of your pieces. This is just a wax and grease remover, but it works for pretty much everything, and then some shop towels to wipe up everything. That won't leave any lint or residue on the pieces that you're going to be wrapping. So theoretically, it's all pretty simple and straightforward, but in practice, it can be quite difficult, especially if you're inexperienced like I am. So I recommend get more material than you think you're going to need, because you will go through it, you will mess up, and you will be happy that you have extra. You don't want to get halfway through the project and then realize you ran out of wrap and then you got to wait for more and order more. So order more than you think you need, you'll be happy you have it. I'm going to apply just a little bit of heat just to loosen it all up. One thing you are also going to need, which I do not have in front of me, is the squeegee. So I'll need to go find the squeegee I used. Alright, so now the next step is to get off all this old glue. So hopefully this wax and grease remover will work. If not, I will grab WD-40. WD-40 also works really well at getting rid of glue and adhesive. Alright, well this is going to take some time and this is incredibly boring, so I'm going to pause the video here and I'll pick back up once I've cleaned off this side, taken off the wrap on the other side, cleaned that all up as well, so we'll be back. Alright, just as a quick update, I did apply much more heat this time around to get the wrap off, and you can see there's a lot less residual adhesive, and I was actually able to get the whole piece off in one go. So I take back what I said earlier of not really needing to apply heat. Do apply heat. That makes it a lot easier to get off and leaves a lot less adhesive, and it gets the wrap off a lot easier. Alright, so now we have the side all clean, both sides all cleaned up, got all the adhesive off, got the wrap off, took a lot of scrubbing. So now the next step is I'm going to practice a little bit using some leftover wrap I have from last time. So I'm going to practice applying that a little bit just to refresh, stretching it and how all that works. And then we'll get to it. And then we'll try to cut this bigger piece down to size and see where that gets us. All right, see you in a bit. All right, so now we are applying the knifeless tape. So this is going to allow us to be able to cut the vinyl once we have applied it down. So I've already done one line up here, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the secondary line following the natural contours of the tank. I messed up a little bit up here, so just gonna lift it, and then just run your finger over it again to make sure it gets applied in the right spot. You can see some of the lines are a little wavy again. So just lift, apply. What seems to work for me is to keep a little bit of tension on it. And then once we get to the end, just cut off and make sure you give yourself a little bit of slack because you do not want to have the ends of the knifeless tape be trapped under the vinyl. You want to be able to grab the ends and be able to peel it off in one go. What also helps is to remember, so like in my case, I have the overlapping knifeless tape. So this one over here is overlapping this one, so I'll need to remember to peel this one off first and then this one. If I peel this one off first, it's going to lift this one, which is going to lift the vinyl over here, which isn't going to be good. So if you're going to have overlapping tape, just remember which order to pull it off first. So we'll go ahead and do the same for the other side, and then we will begin applying the vinyl. All right, now that we have the knifeless tape down, so now we need to measure about how much vinyl we are going to need. So from this side, giving yourselves a little bit of slack on each side, about 25 inches. So then I'm gonna go over to the vinyl and mark off 25 inches and just cut out a piece. We'll lay it on here and get started. That piece of a tore, but we'll put this part. Yeah, tore off a piece as I was cutting it, so we'll put that piece towards the bottom. So we'll lay it down about right here. That should give us good coverage. So we'll put it down like that. Alright, so the next step will then to be peel off the backing, lay it down, and then start applying it. But first, let's wipe down the tank one more time because I can still see there's a little bit of dirt and dust that's collected since we cleaned off everything. You need to make sure that the surface is extremely clean so that the vinyl will stick. If you have a substantial amount of dirt or dust underneath it, when you try to apply it, it's going to peel up over time. Tiny Tater, you ready? Oh. So we're going to start up here towards the front and then work our way back, kind of like how we practiced. I do my little dancey dance. I got my. Yeah, and I cut off a piece pretty big, so that way we have plenty of slack on each side. Just to make sure that we have a little bit of wiggle room if we need it. So generally you want to have a squeegee and then you can kind of push out all the air. I actually lost mine. And the one I was able to find, I didn't like how it was working. So now that we have a little bit of an anchor on this side, So point here is to go slow and steady. Especially if you're inexperienced like we are. Mainly me.
2,000 years later.
The lessons I learned from last time is you don't want to overstretch towards the edges, because last time that's what it peeled back, and I didn't heat treat it enough after it was set because it was overly stretched, and so it immediately almost pulled back a little bit, and then by that point it was already too late. So lesson learned from last time, don't overstretch, and you want to heat treat it. You want to go over it with the heat gun just to make sure that everything is set properly. Typically what you'll want to do with the squeegee is kind of do what I was doing with my fingers, just kind of run over it. And this will be more effective at getting everything out. But like I said, I'm not too fan of this one because I don't have the felt, so this is pretty harsh. And you definitely don't want to go up and down because that's going to leave scratches and mess up your vinyl. And even if it doesn't leave a scratch, you'll be able to see where there are certain markings. It'll kind of leave an indent. So what we can do is start to cut off the excess around the edges, and then we can start peeling the knifeless tape. So back here, I'm going to leave a little bit more extra because I need to be able to get some of the vinyl underneath the tank just for it to hold on. But everything else you can just cut off fairly liberally. You may remember when I first showed you, I have to cut this bottom part off first because the tape underneath here is overlapping the top tape. So I need to get this bottom tape off first. And to do that, if you can really see that. Yeah, I can kind of see it. So to do that, you'll see there's a little string in this knifeless tape. So what you can do is very carefully cut off the green part on each side. And then you can pull it off. So now you can see there's the string that is just exposed right there. And then you can use that to start to cut everything off. So once you get it started, it's a little tricky, but once you get started, you're good to go. And what I also like to do is, and I'll show you on a scrap piece what I typically do, but sometimes what I have found is when I start peeling the tape, it will peel from underneath itself, which isn't what you want because then it's lifting the tape as opposed to cutting it. So you want to make sure you're pulling it upwards and it's peeling through itself. And then what I will also do, yeah, see right now I'm having trouble getting it to actually cut through. And then I will cut a small slit where just to get the knifeless tape started through the vinyl. I'll hold everything down. Then off we go. You obviously want to pull in the, you definitely want to pull in the direction that you're going. Just to help make sure that you get a clean cut. Then that's it, you pull it through. And this one didn't quite make it all the way to the edge, but that's fine. can pull out the scrap remainder. And then I'll just finish the job with the blade on this side. And voila! Now have a very clean cut on the side of the wrap. I'll go ahead and just start to tuck in that side. So now we'll do the same thing on this side. So I'll try and show you going on the opposite direction. So you'll see here, we'll cut just a small little strip just to be able to get the knife. Yep, just to be able to get the little string through. And then I will cut a small little slit just to get it started on the wrap. In some ways, this is the most terrifying part, because if the string, for whatever reason, happens to snap before you get to the other end, it is quite a hassle to get it undone without ruining the wrap underneath it. And that's what happened to me last time. It snapped multiple times, and that was quite a pain. So, there we go. And then we can just peel off. We only got one side, but let's get the other side now. I didn't actually record this, but when I was peeling off the wrap on the other side, there was still a fairly substantial piece of knifeless tape stuck under the wrap. So sometimes it gets stuck under that, but I never noticed it, so not too big of a deal. So now that we peeled it, just run your finger or squeegee, whatever, run it over. And I'm just going to tuck the wrap underneath there and get the heat gun. All right, and that is one side done. Still very much an amateur job. Still not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm happy. So let's go ahead and do the other side. Utilizing a wrap on your motorcycle, I think, is a really cool idea. It's not too much of an investment. It's not too terribly expensive. It's certainly a lot cheaper than getting your bike custom painted for sure. But mine, I've also done the front fender, the fairing, the rear fender, obviously the tank, and I like it. It wasn't too terribly hard, and the wrap on the other areas seemed to be holding up exceedingly well. And so if I ever want to change the colors, it's pretty simple and straightforward. But as I said before, it is very tedious. So if you are not the patient type, I don't know if I would necessarily recommend this. You may want to go take it to a shop to get it more professionally done, which is obviously going to incur more costs. But if you are more hands-on like I am, and I like to do this type of stuff, I'm pretty patient and I like to work on my bike. I like to do as much as I can by myself. So this is a fun project for me. So even though it's tedious and requires a great amount of attention and it's very meticulous, I don't mind it. I actually enjoy it, and I like the satisfaction of having a good outcome at the end of it. It's not perfect by any means, but it's mine, and that's what I like better. I could go and get it professionally done, but I don't know if I would appreciate it the same to the same extent as if I did it myself. I kind of like these little imperfections in it that really make the bike mine. So to each their own. So use your best judgment if you would like to try it. I highly recommend it, but know yourself. And you know, it's definitely not a better option than getting your bike custom painted. It's just a different option. It's a little bit cheaper, and it offers you a little bit more variability there. Getting your bike custom painted would definitely hold up better over time. But again, the vinyl is fairly easy to replace once you need to do it. The tank is definitely going to be the hardest part, at least for me. In terms of sport bikes, you may have more difficulty as there's a lot more angles and there's a lot more different pieces that you can potentially wrap. So you gotta weigh your options there if you want to spend more time there, but you can really make the bike, some of those sport bikes with wraps look really, really awesome. Cruisers, there's fewer pieces, fewer angles, so it's a little bit easier, but with sport bikes, it may be a little bit more of a commitment from that standpoint. So just like last time, see there's a string here, very carefully cut through, peel off the edge like that. And then you can start to, and I know I'm completely blocking it, but you can start to pull up the string. And then you can kind of see where the string is going to be going. I cut through a section of the vinyl just to help guide it through, because there's been a couple of times where it'll just end up pulling off the vinyl as opposed to cutting through it. And we pull it across. And out the back. Peel this. So here you can see now the wrap is done. I'm not going to bother doing with the bottom part, so I'm just going to keep it on the top for now. But if I do decide to do it, I'll have to take the whole tank off and then have it meet up in the back and go through that whole arduous process once again. But I'm happy with what that is. I think it looks a little bit cleaner. And it's fairly even, you know, definitely not perfect, but fairly even. And I'm happy with it. So after all that, again, use your best judgment if you are the type to want to wrap the bike. And if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. But here you can see, kind of I wrapped this part. I wrapped the fairing, the top part of the fender, and for the rear fender, I've wrapped the sides as well as the middle. And again, everywhere else it's holding up really well. And I really like how it looks. I have no problems with it. I've washed, obviously the fairing gets fairly dirty, and so I'll wash it every once in a while, just wipe it down, and it holds up really well. So I don't have any problems with it. The issue with the tank, again, as I said before, was just misapplication, and I overstretched it, and then it peeled back. So this time I don't think I stretched it too much, and hopefully it should be good. So if you have any comments or questions, leave them below. Otherwise, if you liked the video, go ahead and like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you all in the next one. As always, be brave, do good, take care of yourselves. See you, everybody.